Welcome to Eagle Harbor's Sustainability Outreach and Education Workshop Series, funded by Prince George's County, Maryland, Department of Environment for the Stormwater Stewardship Award Program and Chesapeake Bay Trust. Town of Eagle Harbor, Workshop Number 1, Coleman Creek, provided by Greenvest. Guest speaker, Carmen Tucker.
All right, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Jacqueline Goodall, for those people who don't know me. We received a grant from Prince George County Stormwater through the Chesapeake Bay Trust to do a series of 6 workshops. This is our first workshop. It is going to be presented by Greenvest. Greenvest is a company that is doing a large project that is funded through DNR here in Eagle Harbor on the Coleman Creek. They also are doing some shoreline grants that they have submitted, and they're waiting for hopefully approval on those grants. Welcome, and I'm going to turn it over to Carmen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carmen Tucker, and I am the Special Projects Coordinator with Greenvest. That's the part where you got that from. The person I like to, I'm not a huge fan of giving big presentations, but I need you guys to help me out a little bit with that. I'm going to ask you guys some questions throughout the presentation just to make sure you guys are awake. Say, okay, Carmen. This part where you say, okay, Carmen. Okay, there we go. I just need to make sure you guys are awake, and I need you guys to help me out. Sound okay? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So I am here with Greenvest, as Ms. Goodall so kindly said. I'm also here on behalf of GB Petro. You guys are going to learn who we are. You guys are going to learn what's going on in this town. And I hope to answer a couple of questions. A few things, though, we're going to have a Q&A section, section at the end of the presentation. I want to refrain from too much back and forth, only because we didn't necessarily start on time, but I would like for us to end on time. Does that sound okay? Yeah. I think that sounds okay. So let's get started with the first. It's a lot. I also want to make sure I give a shout out to the Eagle Harbor Board of Commissioners and the community at large. Thank you guys so much for having us here. Give a shout out to Prince George's County Department of the Environment, Chesapeake Bay Trust. I want to thank all of you guys for facilitating all of this education for us and for the community. So throughout this presentation, these are the questions that I'm going to be answering for you, but really it's going to come down to 5 main questions. Say, what are those questions, Carmen?
What are those questions from?
Thank you. I'm going to answer that question for you. I'm going to answer the who, what, when, where, and why. Who is Greenvest? Who is this project going to be serving? What is the project? Why are we even doing this? All of those things are going to be answered throughout the life of this presentation. So to answer a few of those quick questions, the who is this community serving? I need everybody to raise their hands, even people online. Y'all raise your hands too. This is serving all of you guys that have your hands up. This project is going to be serving not only the residents of Eagle Harbor, but also the greater community, all of your families and friends that visit your wonderful community. This project is going to be serving all of you. Who is putting on this presentation? Who's putting on this project? I'm going to answer it in the next slide. What is this presentation? What is this project about? This project is officially named. Give me a second. I got notes. This project is officially named the Eagle Harbor Stream Restoration and Community Resiliency Project. The purpose of this project is to stabilize private property currently eroding along the stream channel and protect public and private property from frequent overbank flooding. It will improve the resiliency and self-sustainability of existing nature-based infrastructure and create water quality improvements. Everybody say, what is that, Carmen?
What is that, Carmen?
We're gonna fix the environment. Okay, that's it. Start and end up, we gonna fix the environment. And we're gonna take this journey and we're going to discuss what it is that exactly we're going to be fixing and the concepts that GV Petro has in mind. So quick introduction. Some of you guys might hear Greenvest, some of you guys might hear Petro, some of you guys might hear GV Petro. And all of those things, all of those entities, we're talking about the same set of people. So I want to give a quick shout out to Miss Kathleen Litchfield, who is here representing Petro LLC. You guys can give her a little hand. So we're happy to have her here. Now, GV Petro is a joint venture comprised of both Greenvest and Petro LLC. Together, we have a very special interest in PG County, and you can see up on the screen, there's a map of a lot of projects that we have accomplished on top of the fact that our offices are PG County based. So that's all to say is that we're here for the county. So where is this project taking place? This project is taking place along the Patuxent River. And I can't talk about the Patuxent River without giving a quick shout out to the Patuxent River Keeper, Fred Tutman. He's the technical advisor for this project, but like I said, he's also the Patuxent River Keeper. The Patuxent River starts all the way up in Mount Airy and goes all the way down through the Chesapeake Bay. It is one of 3 main rivers that flow down into the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. On either side, there's the Potomac, and then there is the Patapsco rivers. It is 115 miles long, and I said it starts all the way up in Mount Airy. If any of you guys have been to Mount Airy, that is beautiful wine country. Just gonna slip that in there. But the Patuxent River serves more than just the Eagle Harbor community. It serves tons of plant and animal species. All of us share a part in this, and that's why this project is so important. We're not just going to protect the community of the people that you see and wave to on the weekends. We're going to be protecting vegetation that lives here and the species, and hopefully help a lot of species come back. I'm sure a lot of you guys have memories of either fishing along the Patuxent River or walking along, finding yourself a crab. Or if you're like me, my first experience down here at Eagle Harbor was seeing a beautiful bald eagle flying over top, come down, take out a fish, and then he was gone. So we're hopeful that this project is going to help the community at large. So we're going to start by talking about the shoreline, and then we're going to move our way up into Coleman Creek, and we will discuss for all of our friends why Coleman Creek is important in a couple of slides. But to start with, we're going to talk about the shoreline. Now, one of the problems that the shoreline is facing is shoreline erosion. Everybody say, what's that, Carmen? Well, I have this lovely definition up on the screen just for y'all, so y'all know what it is. Shoreline erosion is actually a very natural process. It is when sediment is carried away. Now, shoreline erosion is supposed to be balanced with another process called deposition. Everybody say, what's deposition? What is deposition? That's a different presentation I'm gonna tell you right now. But deposition is when sediment is deposited, is when sediment is put down. So we have erosion and we have deposition that are supposed to balance each other out. But when one side of the scale is a little too heavy and the other one's a little too light, we face a problem, right? Yeah. All right. And that unfortunately has caused an issue along our shoreline. You can see in the first picture on the left here. Wait, I can say my left and my right. Yeah, right. On our left, you can see there's virtually no shoreline. That's a little sad, isn't it? Everybody say, oh. So why is shoreline erosion happening with this unbalanced scale? We've got sea level rise regionally coming up, and locally we've got excess water coming down, and that is taking a lot of the shoreline out for us. Sea level rise is something that we're going to talk about a little later, but that is a huge portion of why our shoreline erosion is happening in such a large amount here in Eagle Harbor. That shoreline erosion, unfortunately, is causing flooding and damage within our community. Everybody say, oh, I know. So you can see in this right picture, our right, some people on the screen might be left, but on our right, we can see that there is a little bit of damage going on along our coastline. We don't like that, so we're gonna fix it, right? Absolutely. So I have a short video. It talks both about water erosion and wind erosion. But I want you guys to focus on the water erosion because this video gives some very, very good examples of why, of what to look for when you see water erosion.
The landscape of Earth has been formed over millions of years, and it is constantly changing. Some changes are major events that you can see happening, like volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Other changes to Earth's surface are happening so slowly that you cannot notice them from day to day. One such process is erosion. Erosion happens when rock or land changes shape over time. There are different types of erosion. One type is wind erosion. You may not think that wind can change the shape of Earth, but this has happened in many places. One location that has been shaped by wind erosion is in the southwest United States, in Arizona and Utah. This area is known as the wave because it looks like an ocean wave crashing. But how did it get this shape? Wind blowing through the desert carries sand along with it and blows across the rock. This wears away small amounts of the softer rock, and over a long enough time period, the wind creates unusual shapes in the rocks. This area of Utah, called Monument Valley, has some of these unusual rock formations caused by wind erosion. As the rock has been worn away, it has left behind tall structures like these totem-shaped rock pillars. Wind erosion is common in areas of land that are higher in elevation, such as these formations, also in Utah. Another common type of erosion is water erosion. This occurs when water causes rock or land to change shape over time. One of the most dramatic examples of water erosion is also found in the United States. The Colorado River flows from Colorado to Mexico. Over millions of years, the water traveling this path created a canyon. This canyon is now called the Grand Canyon and is a well-known tourist attraction. The canyon is a mile deep and up to 18 miles across at its widest areas. This amazing sight was shaped entirely by the water running over it day after day. Another amazing example of water erosion can be seen along the coast of Scotland, where you will find a rock formation known as the Old Man of Hoy. In the same way that river water can erode rock, ocean waves hitting the land again and again can also cause erosion. This particular formation is called a sea stack. It is a large column of rock that is left after wind and waves erode the surrounding rock and cause sections of the cliff to completely collapse. The Old Man of Hoy is almost 450 feet high. You can figure out if erosion is caused by water or by wind in a simple way. If there is a water source there, like a river, a waterfall, or an ocean, then the erosion is due to water. There are beautiful examples of wind and water erosion all over the world. Many of these locations are popular tourist destinations, while others are rarely seen. Maybe someday you will see one of these wonders for yourself.
Okay, so as you guys could see, that there are different kinds of erosion. The main one that we're focused on here in Eagle Harbor is water erosion. And erosion, you can truly see when it cuts through the land, which it's not supposed to do to where it's carrying away so much sediment. You can see it in areas where if you see a tree next to a riverbank or a stream bank or a creek bank, how like the roots of any kind of vegetation are exposed. That will show you where erosion is. And when you can see it all along a creek or all along a river, we start to have a problem. So Greenvest and GV Petro and Petro, all of us want to fix that. And we have a couple of concepts that we have in mind to help with the shoreline erosion specifically. Say, what's that, Carmen? What's that? Well, I'm gonna tell you, we want to create a living shoreline. Everybody say, y'all are gonna have fun with me, I swear. A living shoreline is a protected, stabilized coastal edge made of natural materials like plants and sediments. The beautiful thing about a living shoreline is that it can grow. It's a living thing. It has plants and vegetation to help hold the shoreline in place. And then it helps to facilitate biodiversity, which helps give us our fish. It gives us our crabs back. It gives us our hard shell friends. It gives us all of those things to help the shoreline grow out. Now we have two different concepts in mind for Eagle Harbor. One is the living shoreline. The other one that we have in mind is a rock revetment. Now, in areas where we can, we're going to put down a living shoreline to help build out the shoreline once again. But in areas where it might be a little bit more difficult, we're going to put a rock revetment. Now, a rock revetment has its strengths as well as a living shoreline. A rock revetment is going to break up the wave energy that is coming from excess water that's being caused by sea level rise. See how I put all the wonderful vocabulary words we learned today together. So we're going to have a rock revetment in some areas along the shoreline and a living shoreline in others. The living shoreline, the reason why that is the one that's the concept that people love the most is because it's just so pretty to look at. You guys can walk along it. You guys can fish along it. It's just going to be so pretty. And we're all going to be excited about it. This is only a portion of what we have in mind for the shoreline. Remember, all of this is just concept for now. The reason why we're focusing on the image that is behind me is because you can really see where the living shoreline or where we would like that placed for now. Again, all of this is concept and all of this is subject to change. There are a lot of moving parts behind the scenes that still need to be put in place. But for now, this is the concept that we have so far. Actually, I think it's a little outdated. It's a little outdated. Yeah, it's a little outdated, but this is unfortunately the best figure that I could find. But we're going to have a dune area. We're going to have actual marsh vegetation. Because one thing that people don't realize is the importance of a dune area in particular is the vegetation. Everybody think of roots and think of how when you have a plant, you can have a plant with beautiful, beautiful leaves and flowers, but all the roots at the bottom hold everything together. The roots help to build up the sediment around it. And we want to put the native vegetation back into Eagle Harbor. So this is like I said, it's slightly outdated, but this is one of the concepts that we have in mind for the shoreline. Everybody say, all right. So we're going to move from the shoreline into Coleman Creek. Everybody say, yay. Now, the reason why we're excited about Coleman Creek is because you guys in this community and those of you that are visiting are going to be seeing progress very, very soon. And when I say very, very soon, I mean by the end of this year, 2023. We're going to be going to construction. And though that sounds a little scary and that sounds very industrial, everything that we're going to be doing along Coleman Creek is a technique that's going to allow the creek to function as it's supposed to on its own. So there's not going to be a bunch of walls built up. You guys are going to see some construction materials, but you are not going to see them there forever. Everybody say yay. Now the pictures behind me are showing one of the problems that is being caused by Coleman Creek and is being caused by the sea level rise that we just discussed. And that's flooding. Flooding is a easy thing to understand by saying it. Everybody knows what flooding is, but the most basic definition that I could find is a temporary overflow of water from a body of water onto normally dry land. And many of you that have property down here in Eagle Harbor are very aware of what flooding is and why it's dangerous. Flooding can cause property damage, but it can also impede the flow of traffic or for people to be able to get to any kind of safety. And that is very, very dangerous. I would like to give a shout out to our very lovely Commissioner, James Jones, for providing all of the images that are up here on the screen. He's taken wonderful pictures. Well, I guess not. He's taken good quality pictures, not necessarily wonderful pictures, but good quality pictures of especially this one in the left side. That's a road. That is Patuxent Boulevard. And it looks like it has more water than Six Flags in July. And that's a little dangerous. Then he's also taken a wonderful video, which you can see on the right side of the screen, that shows a pier that is flooded over. I don't think any of us want that. Do any of us want that? Everybody say no, we don't want that. So we're going to talk about, one of the things we're going to talk about really involves the right video, where you can see that there is a pier that is flooded over. It's flooded over from excess water, but also sea level rise. And so the next video that I have for you is going to discuss how sea level rise is affecting our local area.
NASA has observed the Earth getting warmer and the sea level getting higher. What's the connection? Just like mercury in a thermometer, water expands when it's heated, and Earth's ocean is taking in more than 90% of the heat from global warming. That's a lot. Water temperatures also cause a lot of the ice to melt, and it ends up in the ocean. A child born today can expect the ocean to rise between 1 and 4 feet in their lifetime. In the United States alone, nearly 5 million people live within 4 feet of the local high tide level. That could mean increased flooding from storm surges. And as the ocean rises, its salt water can mix with our rivers and groundwater, which is where many people get fresh water for drinking and farming. So there's no question that sea level is rising. NASA can measure it from space, but what are we going to do about it? Some communities are taking steps to adapt, and others are working to address the cause, global warming. It's a big challenge, but hey, we'd better be up for it, because right now, good old Earth is the only planet we've got.
So yes, our planet is changing as it's supposed to change, but some of those changes are being exacerbated by industrialization. It's being exacerbated by building, and it's out of balance. So we here at GB Petro are going to try to put it back into a little bit of balance for the entire community. So that's the first issue, is flooding. The second issue that we are going to address throughout the project is stream geomorphology, which is the ability of a stream to transport water and sediment that is delivered to it, and how that impacts the dimension, pattern, and the profile over time. Now, I have these very, very wonderful images up that show geomorphology, but I am not an engineer. It's amazing about that. So I'm going to turn our attention over to Graham Gordman, who is our project manager for this project, and he's going to better explain this concern that I can. Right?
Yeah, sure. So, in this slide, we're really looking at why is Coleman Creek eroding, and streams exist in what we call state of dynamic equilibrium, where based on the inputs of water and sediment that are coming to them, they'll either grade or erode. And we're seeing two cases of that in Coleman Creek. In the bottom portion, we see aggradation, where a lot of the material is being deposited and clogging the culverts that are there. While in the upstream section, we see a lot of erosion and degradation. So this diagram at the top is saying is that you're going to have aggradation and degradation based on the amount of sediment and water. The slope is going to impact how quickly the water is able to erode the banks, and if it's going to be deposited. And on the left side, you've got sediment, and that's going to be impacted by the size of the sediment. So when you have big materials, they're gonna resist erosion more than small materials are. And smaller materials are gonna be deposited differently than larger materials are. And all that is gonna lead to the stream either eroding or depositioning. So in the bottom there, the channel evolution model, you know, in stage one, you see sort of the existing undisturbed stream. And once you start to get, you know, either too much water or too little sediment, you're gonna start to have erosion of the stream, and the stream's gonna downcut. So first what happens is downcutting, and then you start to get widening. That widening continues down into stage 4 and 5, and eventually you reach, you know, what we call a state of dynamic equilibrium, where the stream is neither really eroding or degrading or depositing in, you know, one large mechanism throughout. So while that is a state of stability, we don't necessarily want the stream to reach that itself. We want to sort of come in and control how that is going to happen and where it happens. And you know, in our case, we're going to be removing a lot of the sediment and stabilizing it in place and providing a much more stable dynamic equilibrium based on the water that is coming in and the sediment that's in the stream. So that is why the stream is eroding and what we can do to solve that problem.
So in the next slide, in the top right corner, that is a current picture of Coleman Creek. And we see a few of the signs that we talked about with erosion and what Graham talked about with stream geomorphology. How you can see some of the, I know it's a little blurry, I'm sorry, but you can see some of the roots from the trees that are around the creek. And we really want to fix that. So we have our concepts together. And like I said, we're going to construction at the end of the year. And so I'm going to explain how we're going to fix the problem. Everybody say how, Carmen? We're going to do some stream restoration. Now, stream restoration is a series of techniques to help improve the environmental health of a river or a stream. It's very simple. We're going to restore the stream to what it was before. For Coleman Creek, we're planning to help alleviate the concerns by creating more flood storage within the entirety of the creek. It is 2,400 feet of the creek that is going to be fixed. The more area will help to address flooding and erosion. The project will create more area for flood storage so that there isn't standing water within the community that can cause damage or impede travel. We're also going to stabilize the creek itself, and we're going to plant native vegetation because there's actually some invasive species that are living along Coleman Creek, and we don't like that. The bottom picture that you can see is not a picture of Coleman Creek, but that is a picture of a creek that our team has restored. And Graham, can you explain the left image?
Sure. So this is a project that Biohabitats designed for us in Anne Arundel County. Biohabitats is the engineer for the Coleman Creek project. So this specific image here is of what we call a beaver dam analog structure. Before there was a lot of disturbance in the channels by human settlement in this area, the beavers were very dominant in these valleys, and they built these beaver dams really throughout, and they would backwater the whole channel in a series of sort of steps. So there weren't really the single threaded channels that we see today. So what we're trying to do in that area that is upstream of Hawkins Drive is to promote that system that was there before and try to store some of the water in there and really use the floodplain for what it was meant to be, where we can store water on the floodplain and reduce the amount of energy that's in the channel. So that's the image on the left. The image on the right, Carmen, is more what we're going to focus on sort of in the downstream area where we're kind of weaving our way between the homes and property and large trees that are down there that we don't want to disrupt. So we want to have sort of a different footprint there. But we also want to provide the floodplain connectivity in an area where we can do that, where we're not impacting residents and their property. So it's a little bit of a different approach, a little less heavy-handed, but the idea is to stably convey the water down from Hawkins Boulevard. Is it Hawkins Boulevard or?
Hawkins Drive.
Okay. Hawkins Drive. Okay. Down into the Patuxent River. And so, that's really the focus of the project and how we're going to accomplish that in the next section.
So because there is excess water coming from upland and there is sea level rise coming from the river, we need to help the creek so that it can accommodate all of that extra water and not cause standing water throughout the town. The other the other thing that we're going to be doing during the project is we're going to be replacing 2 culverts. And now some people might know what culverts are, but for those of us that don't know what a culvert is, everybody say, what's that, Carmen? A culvert is a structure that helps to guide water through an obstacle like a roadway or a rail or a railway. So we're going to be replacing the 2 culverts because unfortunately they're undersized. Everybody say, oh. Now they're undersized, and with the excess water that we just discussed, I'm going to do a little bit of visualization. I need everybody to close their eyes for a second. Everybody close your eyes. Don't look at me. Close your eyes. Now imagine you are at a really great concert. We're gonna use somebody. I know he's no longer with us. Let's say Michael Jackson came back for one night only, just one. That is a packed stadium if he comes back for one night, right? All right. So we have enough people to fill up the Super Bowl twice. But we only have one tiny door to get in and out. When that concert lets out, how easy do you think it's going to be for everybody to get through that door? Everybody shake your heads. No, you're not getting through that door. So when everybody, you can open your eyes now, because that was painful, wasn't it? Getting through that tiny door was a little painful. Now, if it was an open concert or the doors were bigger, it'd be a lot easier for everybody to move through, right? Exactly. We're going to make the culverts a little bigger so that the water can move through. Because right now they're undersized. And if you thought about the concert, like I just asked you to do, all those people or all the water moving through those tiny culverts is going to cause a lot of energy to build up and shoot out from the culvert. All of those people moving through that tiny door is going to cause a lot of energy because everybody's going to try to get away from that door as soon as they're on the other side of it. It's the same thing. These culverts are unfortunately too small. So the top right picture is of Patuxent Boulevard, and the bottom right picture is of Hawkins Drive. And because of the excess water, we're going to make the culverts a little bigger to allow the water to flow correctly and not cut through Coleman Creek like it's been doing up until this point. This is not an exact picture. Obviously, those culverts are going to look a little different, but that's what we're aiming for as opposed to what we have on the right side. So I wanted to leave you guys with these 2 pictures of the concepts that GB Petro has come up with. The left side shows the entirety of Coleman Creek that is going to be worked on. We're very excited. You can see the arrows pointing to where the 2 culverts are going to be beneath Patuxent Boulevard and beneath Hawkins Drive. But we're going to do construction along the entirety of the creek to restore it back so that you guys do not have to experience the erosion that's been going on, that's been carrying sediment all the way down and depositing it in places it's not supposed to be deposited in. We're going to restore the creek so that you don't have flooding in your town and you don't have any kind of property damage that comes along with it. Everybody say yay. And then we're going to be moving into the shoreline with all of our fingers and toes crossed. And so that we can put a living shoreline along that and it can grow over time. And you guys will be able to have your families and friends come down and enjoy your beautiful community. And that is all I have. That's the part where you guys clap to me. So before I open us up to questions, I want to thank again the Eagle Harbor community, the Board of Commissioners, the Goodall, Mayor Waters for having us here. I want to thank Prince George's County Department of the Environment and Chesapeake Bay Trust. Thank all of you guys for asking us to be a part of this first workshop. And for giving us the opportunity to help out the community. So now, Miss Goodall, you're passing out the right one, right? That says,
Yes, were you listening?
were you listening? Yes. So Ms. Goodall is passing out a quiz to everybody. This quiz is just to see if you were paying attention. All of the points, I hope you guys tried really hard on your first quiz and this quiz, because all those points are going to be tallied together for wonderful door prizes that Ms. Goodall has been kind enough to procure for us. And if you guys have any questions either about, well, we're gonna focus on questions about our presentation right now. But if you have questions about the project, you can feel free to contact Graham. You can feel free to contact another point of contact within GBP Trail, Paul Zanecki, or you can feel free to reach out to me. Even if I don't know the answer, I do my best to try to find. So does anybody have any questions about the presentation itself? Is that good?
Do you want me to ask, if there are any questions in the Zoom audience? Bertha, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. I learned a lot from that presentation. That's the first time I ever seen the Colbitts. Well,
That's great. I did one thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Along can't cause erosion, right? Just the wind by itself.
Yeah.
That's a question. Is that a question?
No, I'm saying the wind alone, you have to have sand to mix with the wind, right? To cause the erosion. Cause I
There's
can't see
different-
how wind by itself just cause erosion.
There are different kinds of erosion.
Yeah, the wind-based erosion is called aeolian erosion, and that's basically where the wind is moving fast enough that it picks up the particle of sediment and starts.
Right.
That's the idea of a dust storm, right? That all that wind has picked up all that dust and moved it off of the land.
So it sort of like acts like a sandpaper. With the wind.
Yeah, so then,
Yeah.
then, you know, the wind will pick up the sand and then it can
Be
cause
like
that.
sand.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, that's what I'm trying.
Yeah, there's sort of two mechanisms there that are similar.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It hurts. I've been
Yeah,
in a
right.
windstorm on
Yeah.
the beach.
Yeah,
It's painful.
yeah, you're right.
Anybody got anything?
Well, I have one
Okay,
on the coal pipes that's gonna be installed at Hoffman and the Hudson Boulevard. Will it be a single outlet or will it be like a dual pole?
The single outlet, the dimensions are roughly 4 feet by 6 feet. And it'll be an elliptical pipe. And the reason that it's an elliptical pipe is because, you know, we wanted to make sure that we could get fire equipment down and garbage trucks down into town that weigh a lot, so that the elliptical pipe gives you the most amount of capacity while, you know, providing the most amount of ability to resist the weight of those things going on top of it, without crushing. Yep, so there'll be elliptical single pipes. They'll look kind of like that picture that we showed, but there'll be a fence on the backside of it. The county made us put a fence on there. And it'll be elliptical rather than circular. It'll have the concrete end walls and wing walls, and it'll look like a modern pipe, like we'll have a
Right.
date stamped on it and the bridging and everything. Right. Yep.
Do you have like, color photos or drawings of what it's gonna look like when it's complete? Is it gonna be like aesthetically pleasing?
of course.
So you have like, drawings, like photos, so we can see what it looks like, what it's supposed to look like when it's done.
So we have pictures of,
Yeah, absolutely. We've got, yeah, I mean, we don't have, we call it rendering, and
Right.
we take pictures that we took here and then draw on those pictures. We don't have those for this project. Most people were just trying to move as quick as we can to get this thing around. But we have examples from other projects that we've done that we can direct you to. You know, right now we're working on 4 projects up in Montgomery County that include a lot of stream restoration. And so just last week, we published a series of websites for those that have lots of pictures and lots more information. So I can send those to you as a start, and then I can get more, you know, descriptive photos of exactly what's going to happen here. So.
Okay, that'll be.
Commissioner Prince, did you have questions?
Yes. So I know there's been a lot of studies done about the effects of the erosion and the deep waters, the rising sea level. But even in town, we have some property owners that have protected their fronts or the sea, the edge of the border lines with almost seawalls where they have built their property up and it extends out, and they've not experienced what other owners have experienced. And my question is, does that in and of itself, where property owners have taken these protective measures, how has that affected shoreline erosion? Has it caused it to increase, especially where properties have that circular space going in? Would it cause the water to come in more forcefully, especially when it's high? And if that is considered, the fact that the other lands were maintained, why wouldn't that option have been considered as an effective means to protect the shore?
I think there's a couple of questions in there. So having we'll call it a seawall, having a seawall, having a rock revetment, having a seawall versus a rock revetment versus a living shoreline, there's no necessary right answer. There are benefits to some, and there are, there are weaknesses throughout with any decision. The concepts that we have for the shoreline are to protect the entirety of the shoreline. We're going to be, once we get past like the concept phase, we're going to be looking at those areas where wave energy is hitting the shoreline a little bit more, and those areas that are already protected. But the goal, especially with the living shoreline, is to help build it out for those areas where the wave energy is a little bit stronger.
It's a good answer. And the other thing that you probably touched on a little bit is where you build out into the Patuxent, you're sort of disrupting the natural flow of sediment along the shoreline. So you're going to cause aggregation on the upstream side of that and a little bit of degradation on the downstream side of that. So what you do on the shoreline affects your neighbors. And that's kind of why we're looking at doing the broader scale project that we can do, so that we tie all of those things together and make it a more unified system.
We're not just going to go in with construction materials and things like that without observing where we already are. Because the goal is not to necessarily have one place built above another. The goal is to observe what's already happening, figure out how to get everything onto the same page. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, at the mouth of Coleman Creek, there's lots of sediment. Do you know if there are any plans to remove any of that sediment? How do you plan on addressing the mouth of Coleman Creek? The sediment. Yeah, if you're speaking of a living shoreline, the soil or the bottom stages there already.
Yeah.
So how would that be addressed?
I don't think we have a good answer yet. I think that's something that we've done the concept design to kind of generally understand. Once we get the money and that money, we don't have that money yet in order to do the advanced testing and modeling and design that we really need to do. That's when we'll figure out, do we need to dredge a little bit of it?
Yeah, because it's that black mud that's big. So nothing's, if you're talking about doing living shoreline in that area, it's not gonna take in that area from what I can see.
Yeah.
Also, there's something you just said also interesting is, say like when you scale something out, upstream, downstream is gonna be affected, right? And then I want to study to see how much of an effect that jetty did on the shoreline. And to say honestly that jetty, as they say, has no effect on the shoreline in that area, the erosion and sediment that's in that area.
Yeah, I
Has there been anything in your work to look at that?
There hasn't been, not yet. And, but that's something that we want to really get into and figure out, well, what is the impact of that
Yeah,
feature? And, I was talking before, and, back in the sixties, before that building was built, it was just sort of a straight shoreline that ran straight down. And they built that area out probably 200 or 300 feet, maybe even more from where the current shoreline. And, I think that's a significant driver of what's happening down at that end of the shoreline. And you don't understand exactly what it's doing now. Those studies to figure that out cost a lot of money. But that's part of the money that we're asking FEMA and National Fish and Wildlife Federation for right now, figure that out.
because as you know, the ocean have a tendency to try to mean something, and you can see with sediment build up there, that when a real big storm come up, it's been trying to reclaim that area by cutting through it,
Yeah,
and then they try to stop the rock, right? It still comes in there and causes sediment.
I absolutely agree with that, and I think as we start to develop these projects, we take steps and figure out what's, not only from a engineering perspective, but from sort of an accountability perspective, and then we can start to look at what else do we need to get involved in.
Okay. My question is, I barely hear anything concerning the state road and all that. We have a lot of runoff on the upper end of Coleman Creek that's doing a heavy rain, and most of the time just rain that runs across the road, creating a lot of erosions and everything else. What I didn't hear is y'all gonna be involved with the county or the state to put more drain lines in for them, for the road, for the upper half, or what?
So with the excess water that's coming from upland, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, up
Yeah.
there.
So with Coleman Creek, the idea is to create more flood storage to accommodate that excess water. And then help guide it back to the Patuxent. The flooding is happening all along the area, not just downstream, though that is where we experience it the most, but it's coming from upstream. And we are going to, because right now Coleman Creek is like this, and we need to make it like this. And then create extra, buffer along either side of the creek to help hold the groundwater. Grant, am I misquoting?
No, I think you got it there. I mean, your question is a classic question of why do we do stream restoration? Why can't we just go up into the uplands where the water is coming from and address the problem? Because the problem is there's too much water coming off of the impervious surfaces and getting down to the channel causing all. That balance that I
This is
saw.
owned by the state.
It's sold by the state, 100%, absolutely. So when I showed that diagram, now you've got too much water, your balance is gonna flip and now you're gonna have degradation, the stream's gonna go low. So why don't we go in and do that and address all those impervious surfaces? It's expensive, more expensive than doing the stream restoration work that we're gonna do to stabilize the stream. So it kind of treats the the symptom and not the cause. Some say that that's not the best approach in this type of situation, and I don't know that I can argue with them. But where we're at right now is that we're gonna sort of address the erosion that's happening in the stream because of that water, and then we're gonna go back and figure out, like, is it appropriate to put in a stormwater management pond somewhere to look at the Pepco drainage that's happening? Is it appropriate to look at some of the county roads that are at the top of the watershed? Those are all things that we want to come in and look at later on to add resiliency to the project. But the project is going to function to achieve the goal of stabilizing the building that's happening and providing habitat with that flow still happening. And if you take it away, the project will still work. Great. So that's kind of our approach. And it's a great question, and it's a fundamental policy question about how we restore the streams of the area. And we have to have roads, we have to have the power plants, but how do we offset the environmental damage that those create? Tough question.
Can I add to that? One of the things you say, one of the county and the state get involved, the county and the state is involved. The county is providing, sounds like $500,000.
No, DNR provided about $500,000
No,
to the construction, and the
yeah.
county is more about $4.5 million. Right, so that's how they've chosen to use their money to address the problem rather than the type of things that you're talking about.
So then I just want to say that they, without the funds from the state and the county, we wouldn't be able to do this project or procedures. Okay, so even though they're not, as Graham says, they're not moving roads because they can't move roads, the water's got to come somewhere. That is one of the reasons why in future workshops, you'll begin to understand about how important it is to stop putting impervious surfaces everywhere, like putting, you were going to, I, in the towns that I work with, I try to push putting impervious surfaces so that, like if you put in a driveway, or if you put in sidewalks, that you put in something that just the water can go through and get back into the earth. At Forest Heights, I put in several rain gardens in our town so that our municipal grounds in a 4-inch rain is zero runoff. None of the water goes into the oxygen line. That water goes into the ground, or we control how it goes into the oxygen line. So we'll talk about in future workshops about doing rain gardens and doing in purchase services so that we can, as human beings, do what we can to help the environment. Because at the end of the day, like you saw in one of the videos, nature is doing what nature is doing because of what we have done as humans. And so we have to find a balance. And that balance is some of the things about putting in things like the shorelines versus putting in cotton. So that we can try to find the balance of what's going on and try to find some kind of. So, are there any more questions? So if there's not any more questions, I hope that everyone will come back to the next one. Carmen, do you want to pick up your
Yeah.
and
We'll see who gets these wonderful.
real quick through the questions and